Hello, hello, welcome to a really special Horns Up because this time I think it's our first ever time that we are talking to Demonic Resurrection in its anniversary week, 20 years
Yeah,
of the band.
Yes.
And of
Hello.
course, that yes came from Sahil Makhija, the Demonstealer.
Hey guys, what's up? How are you all doing?
doing okay, man.
As okay
Yeah,
as okay can be.
that's true.
So, so I'm gonna dive straight in and ask you. Demonic Resurrection completed 20 years earlier this week. How
Yeah.
does it feel looking back? Well, other than the obvious feeling old.
Um, it it feels okay. Normally around this time I get very emo on Facebook and I have a lot of emotions, but this time I guess the situation in the world has sort of put life into perspective. So I was just like, cool, 20 years, not bad. it's just it was a nonchalant event almost.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening around the world kind of um, paints things very differently. But hey, it's not every year that people turn 20 or bands turn 20. It is kind of a landmark.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely for us it's a big deal to have survived 20 years and you know we were looking forward to it but yeah, like I mean I don't know, I was hoping that things would click this year for the band and we'd be able to do some kind of touring, and I was quite upset that we had only been able to book Metal Days this year, which is happening in the end of July, which from the looks of it right now I can't say whether we will be there or not, because I don't know what the situation is going to be, in July this year. Is
Hmm.
this situation going to change? Is travel going to become regular again? What's the deal? So and I think it's also like, just because we know it's not just us who are suffering, like suddenly like everybody's in a bad way, and there are bands that have it way worse, and I'm suddenly not so, you know uh, sad about what whatever little stuff I was complaining about. So I'm just glad that we're okay, glad that we're here, we're still able to make music, and yeah, just happy to be around.
Yep, yep. Happy to be around. All right, so considering this is your anniversary week as such, we're gonna dive right in and like into a Wayback Machine kind of a thing, and kind of take everyone who's listening, which is perhaps only the two of us and you, through this whole journey of the band over the last 20 years. So let's get things started with really the first question, which is what happened on 6th April 2000 and why is that date the birthday for DR? Because Wikipedia and your
Hmm.
Wikipedia says that the band was formed in March 2000.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of have two birthdays for the band. One being the approximate time that the band was actually sort of formed, and one being the first show of the band. So March is when the band sort of got together, but April 6th is the day we played our first show. So I generally count April 6th as the main sort of date.
Okay.
Okay.
March is like a generic. I can wake up on March 1st, or I can wake up on March 15th and say, DR was formed in March 20 years ago. But April 6th is very specific because it is the day of the first show. Because we didn't have like a formation, so to speak. It was very like the way it came together was very strange, because I had kind of been searching for band members for what, 2 years, I think, in college, like 98, well, late 98 to late, like to early 2000. And I think around January or so, I had kind of said, you know what, this is not happening, fuck this shit, I'm going to now go on stage with my computer and play. And that was the plan. I was
Really?
taking, yeah, yeah, I was taking drum lessons from Ovi, and I had played him my songs, and he was like, "Hey, this stuff is good, man. Like, you're doing good and all." I was like, listen, I really want to go live. I want to play and all. And I was like, listen, I can bring my computer to Raz. I can, it'll take me 15 minutes to set it up. I'll give the speaker out to the mixer and I'll press play with, and I'll play along. And I think, I can't remember, he was like, yes, go for it, or was like, no, don't do it. But he was like, I think he was encouraging about, like, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. But then, as fate would have it, I ran into Prashant Shah, who was from my school, who was a year senior to me, and who had gone to America to study at Purdue. And then I think he went to MI for 3 months, and he had come back and he was ripping on the guitar. So I was like totally taken in by Prashant, and Prashant was like, "Yeah, dude, I'll play with the band and stuff." And Prashant then got Aditya, and Aditya got Yash. Since Aditya and Yash live literally like 2 minutes away from each other, and I think Yash was a Garba drummer. He used to play Dandiya and Garba. And after he met Aditya, Aditya introduced him to Slayer and Sepultura and Metallica and all these bands, and then Yash had started playing metal. So Prashant got Aditya, who got Yash, and I was like, shit, I have a lineup. So let's get a show going. So me and Ovi organized the event on 6th April, which was going to be Naked Earth headlining, Scepter, DR, and Meta Kicks would open the show. And at that point, I was like, okay, we need a keyboard player. So there was a friend of mine called Farhad, who was the son of the late Vijay Arora, the Bollywood actor.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the only keyboard player I knew, because obviously finding metalheads in those days who play instruments was tough. Finding a metalhead who played keyboards was even tougher, because it's not a common instrument in the metal scene even now. Like, there are
Yeah.
keyboard players, but most of them are like different styles of music. So anyway, I called him up. I said, listen, can you play this stuff? And he said, yeah, I can play. This is easy, because he was like bashing out Michael Jackson tunes and stuff, and he was like full on into like Bollywood and pop music and all. So, but he was like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, I'm on board. I'll come and play. So around March, this all came together, and I was like, okay, guys, so we've got a gig on 6th April. I had some kind of exams, and so did Farhad. So
Okay.
Aditya, Yash, and Prashant jammed for like 15 days on their own. So I said, okay,
Okay.
I gave them the settler. I said, we'll do My World of Sadness, we'll do Darkened Moon, we'll do Creatures of Ancient Blood, and I don't remember if we had discussed anything else. But basically, on the 1st of April is when all five of us met,
Okay.
and we jammed for 5 days every single day to get ready for the show. We had no bass player. I remember I tried to play bass and sing,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't. I was fucking it up, so I decided to just. We said we'll play without a bass player.
Right, Sal. So you know what? Before you get to the first gig,
Huh.
we got someone who has memories leading up to that gig. So
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, let's hear that.
Demona, 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 Demona.
Prashant Shah.
Congratulations on 20 years of PR.
What?
big
I think one of the funniest things probably was, auditioning Yash. So I'm sure most people know the history of, how this came together. Um, but yeah, I don't think a lot of people know about how Yash was auditioned. So Yash was a friend of Aditya, and just to give you some backstory, he obviously was someone that did not know much about metal or the heavier side of things in music. He used to play for a dandiya group. I think it was Aditya who found him somewhere. I'm not sure exactly how Aditya found him, but yeah, he used to play for a dandiya group, and he was quite good actually. And the funny thing was that uh, Yash at that time was not someone who was very conversant in English, and we had to get him on board to play this show with Sahil, and obviously Sahil wanted to meet this guy first and check out if he can actually play or not. because we'd really hyped him up a lot. And so we were going to this to Irvi's place. I remember Irvin was Naked Earth drummer, rest in peace. We were going to his place, and that was the only kit that we really had to audition him on. So we go to his house, and Irvi, in his usual style, was bunked up in his tiny room where his drum kit was, and his mother was shouting from the other room. Yeah, but Yash got on the kit and he looks at everyone and he says, "Now I am going to play Seasons in the Abyss," and he ends that statement with a crash. And yeah, he played the song. He did a pretty good job, and he was in. And that was pretty hilarious because Yash was not someone who came from this background in the first place, and it was remarkable that he was able to pick up this genre of music so fast. And kudos to Aditya, obviously, to find a gem in hidden in like some Guju Dandiya cave. But yeah, anyways, so after the audition got over, we obviously decided to prank Sahil, and just we put Yash and Sahil in a rickshaw together. And it was the funniest thing because Yash was not, as I said, not very conversant in English, and Sahil was not very conversant in Hindi. So it was like the funniest and weirdest conversation that they probably had. They probably like exchanged like notes with some visual gestures or whatever. I'm not sure, but that was a pretty funny moment for us at least. Then another thing was so when I joined DR, I think when we heard the material that Sahil had, obviously we we said that we're not going to play this and we're going to change it into a format or into a version that we would like to play. So we went in and hacked at Sahil's material, and we decided to change it completely because we wouldn't play the brats that we were. But yeah, I mean the fun part was also bullying Sahil. And oh yeah, one of the craziest things that actually happened before that first show was that Sahil was very gracious enough to lend Aditya his guitar. He had this custom made Alberto. It looked like that I think a BC dish, if I'm not mistaken. But we used to jam on my terrace, and on one fine day we were about the jam, and this was in the middle of the afternoon, the blazing sun. I mean, we didn't think about all that at that time. We just wanted to play. So yeah, we left the guitar on a Neel Kamal chair that was on my terrace because we were, I think, trying to tighten the drum heads or something like that. Not sure what the fuck we were doing, but that guitar actually slipped and the entire lower half of the guitar like snapped off, like completely, like two separate blocks. So here there's a guitar that Sahil's generously given to Aditya and he broke it the first day itself. Obviously we went back to Alberto's and we got that fixed, but yeah, I mean Sahil obviously had a very tough time when we told him about it. And yeah, we had some great memories with Sahil, Farad, and that was the genesis of a lot of our musical inclinations and careers, so to speak. I mean, it's not like we have a career in music, but my point being that was the beginning of a lot of journeys together. Obviously, we eventually formed Exhumation, and Sahil obviously had DR, but there was a lot of fun that we had during that first show that we played, and we learned a lot about being on stage and what it felt to be on stage fright, and being able to perform in front of 250 people. I mean, Raz, that was a crazy show. I mean, I remember I actually still remember exactly what I was wearing on that show, and uh, I have very vivid memories of that particular show.
What were you wearing, Sahil, on that day? Do you remember?
Yeah. First of all, that was a recording over of Prashant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, he's on the call. What? Right. So I was wearing these baggy six pocket cargo pants that were all the rage in the early 2000s. And I had a Rotting Christ t shirt on because I had got that with my Century Media order. And I was like so excited. In fact, I think that is the only picture of that, like that day that I have is me in my house. My mother took my picture before I left for the gig. So that's the only picture I have, but we have no photos from that show. We have no band pictures, nothing of that time. Like,
Do you still have that guitar with you?
I did have it. I actually gave it away to a fan because it was just sitting and gathering dust. So I was like, if anyone in Bombay plays guitar and they're looking for an electric and they're willing to take care of it, you can have my guitar and like, I mean, I'll own it, but like you can keep it and use it or whatever. So I've
That's so sweet.
given it to this guy. I think it's Kaustubo I gave it to.
What other memories do you have of that show? I mean, there was Scepter, Metakix, Naked Earth, like you said.
Yeah, and of course, they mentioned bullying you into changing songs. Did that really happen? Which
Um,
songs were you bullied into changing?
so the funny thing is, actually, I was there. Prashant actually only changed one part in one song. S- Like, I mean, I don't think they really like took my songs and like totally changed them. They just added a like a little small things to it. It was nothing major actually, because if I have the original recordings of those songs still on my computer, and obviously what those guys changed is what made it to the the first DR album recording. Because we stuck to those changes. We didn't change. I didn't change anything back once Prashant left, or you know. So that's an interesting thing. Like they only actually changed one song slightly by adding like changing a three count into a four count or something. It was actually not that different. In fact, now I'm curious to go back and listen on my computer to the exact changes that they made. But
Oh,
yeah, speaking of memories of that show, the first thing is it was also my first show as an organizer. So I organized that show along with Irvi, um, and we put that show together. We had, I think, in those days there was no Wilburn. That day, those days there were Romeo on sound. Romeo used to charge 3,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees for sound because Raz had terrible sound, and I think either Irvi got his drum kit or I got my kit. I think I got my kit actually a little later in life, but yeah, I think Irvi got his kit for that show, and we got Metakicks to open, even though this was DR's first ever show, and Metakicks had been around for a little while at least, and so the very strange thing is when DR played, the entire audience just sat down. Like because they had never seen us, they'd never heard of us. And this is Raz when Raz had a pit. Like, so Raz had an
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
disc, like a pit area. So you would
yeah,
enter Raz, and there were like four steps going down into a pit, and the stage was at an elevated level. So it was actually a much better venue back in the day than it was later on once it got renovated and they removed that pit and stuff.
yeah.
Um, but I remember the audience just sat down. Everybody across the entire thing just sat down and chilled and watched us. My friends from school had come to watch me as well, which was really cool. And I think they were sitting in the front row of the. So it was weird. We were performing, and I probably like the worst in terms of stage presence because I literally stood at the mic. I did not move at all. Like I was like a statue. And I didn't have my glasses because I was obviously not going to wear my glasses on stage. I had short hair. I Everything was a blur in front of me. And I didn't talk to the audience at all between songs. Like the one thing I said was between just before the last song, which was the Slayer and Sepultura medley, and I was like, "Are you guys ready for Slayer?" That is it. And when I when I s- yeah, it's hilarious. When I said that, one of my friends from school, and this is the moment I will never forget. One of my friends from school, Aditya, who also used to bully me by the way in school, he got up, started headbanging, put his horns in the air, walked up to the stage, turned around, realized nobody else had gotten up with him, and went right back and sat down. It was damn funny, but I don't know. And it was not like a anti-DR sit down or anything. It's not like in protest we sit down. It was just like, हाँ कौन है ये कौन बजा रहे हैं like देखते हैं. Because those days everyone was
Yeah,
playing covers and everyone was there for Naked Earth. Like, because Naked Earth covered everything. Like they did
yeah,
right from
yeah.
Pantera, Sepultura to Metallica, Megadeth to like Black Sabbath. So like they were the headliner. Everyone had come for them. In fact, even Scepter was like a smallish band at that time. Like Scepter was, chotu. Like they were like people stood up for them. But Naked Earth is when people went crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, that was the way the first show went. And the good thing is, like Prashant said, there were like 200, 300 people were there, and we actually made money on that first show.
Wow.
Yeah, first and
That.
last time ever.
Back in the 90s, Thursday nights at Raz Rhino was the biggest event for a lot of scene stars. When I got in, I saw Sahil on stage with Prashant Shah, who's the scribe guitarist, belting out some loud, heavy riffs, and Yash Patak and my good old friend Aditya Mehta on stage too. I was like, wow, that sounds like a loud, noisy, and a fast band. Seems like fun. But over the years, I played and shared the stage with DR as I was in Kinky Ski Monkey in Pendrop Islands. I remember DR was like one of the only bands that played originals, their own music, while all the other bands were like busy pleasing people with like covers, and even the crowd judged you based on the quality of your covers.
I first saw DR in the first show at Raz after Prashant left, so it must have been in May 2000. It was a three-piece then. Sahil was a college acquaintance who had then become friends with my brother, so we had all gone for the show. My most enduring memory from that show was seeing Yash before the show, and he was this tiny, scrawny kid who was walking around with drumsticks sticking out of his bag, and I thought maybe he was the drummer's friend. And when the set started and he got behind the stage, I was blown away by how fabulous he was. That I think is like one of my most lasting memories from that show. Um, Later, we found the band website and saw that Sahil was looking out for a female singer. I reached out to him in an uncharacteristically proactive move on my part and thought I was being called in to audition, but was basically just taken into the band. That was also the day that Ashwin Salian joined the band as a bassist. My first show was in the Raz Lawns in June 2000, and it was, I think, either Death Fest or Tremors. I forget which one. I sang only a verse or two in a couple of songs and felt quite useless on stage. Over the next few months, the band went through a massive inflation in band members. So at a point, we were, I think, 7 of us on stage. And obviously, Sahil wanted to simplify. So I was asked to take up keyboard duties, and Aditya took up the bass guitar.
So that was Ashwin Dutt. Then Nikita. So here's the question then. How tough was it to find musicians at that time? Or really, what would you attribute to this changing roster?
So I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I was like, I want to play. I do not want to stop. I do not want this machine to stop working. We need to get cracking. Like we can't do time pass. This is not a, joke. Like it was because I had put my and I still, I mean, till today, like my entire life is behind the band. Like I've lived my entire life has been designed around the band, whether it's the job I got, whether it's the choices I've made of living at home, everything has been because of. So I was 16, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is my dream. I want to make it as a band. So I was like, nothing is going to stop me, you know. So after the first show, Prashant had to go back to America. Like, so Prashant was only here for a short duration. He had come for a couple of months. We always knew he was going back.
Hmm.
So Prashant was going back. I always knew that. Farhad had to go on a holiday. Uh, so I was like, I don't care if he's going on a holiday. We still need to play a show since we've got a show. Like you cannot like not take a gig up. So and I was like, okay, so Prashant is gone. Uh, I'll have to now learn to play guitar and sing, which I did. So I was like, Farhad is not here, guys. And anyway, we didn't have a bass player. So I was like, okay, um, let's play anyway. So we played the show. I don't think it was a great show. It was horrible. Sang horribly, played horribly. But nonetheless, after that show, Aditya was like, look, I know Ashwin who plays bass. And I think I had, like you said, Nikita saw us, and I think I spoke to her in college. I can't even remember that story now. But whatever, Nikita joined the band as a female vocalist. Um, and then we started jamming and we got Death Fest. So again, we were back with a different lineup. Then after that Death Fest show happened, again, there was some heavy duty mistakes and all that happened on stage and blah, blah, blah. So also there was a lot of conflict because I was a bit like of a dick, maybe. I was very controlling and like I obviously didn't have skills of dealing with people and being very diplomatic and whatever, whatever. So I was often the tyrant or the dictator, my way or the highway kind of thing. So after that show, Farhad was like, yeah, okay, I mean, I was happy to help you out, but this really isn't my long-term scene. So we're like, okay. And then Nikita was like, I can play keyboards as well. So then, okay, Nikita became vocal and keyboard. And then we were like, I think we wanted a lead guitar player because we felt that we needed one since neither Aditya nor myself could play lead guitar. So that's when we met Ashish. Then Ashish was there for a while, and then we played a show. And again, in those days, imagine, I'm talking those days when basically getting three monitors on stage was a big
Luxury.
thing.
Yeah.
So we had a gig where there was again a big fight on stage where Aditya, me, and Ashish are there. And again, like I said, I was a kid, I was selfish, I was a dumbass. So we had a bit of a fight on stage because there were not enough amps. Aditya didn't know where to plug in, and I obviously then Aditya became the least important guitar player, no, because Ashish was the lead guitarist. I was rhythm and vocal and whatever band founder. So Aditya got kind of sidetracked there. And then we had a big talk, and I was like, listen, Aditya, it's, either you play bass and Ashwin leaves, or you leave, or whatever. So Aditya shifted to bass then, and Ashwin left. And then I guess again Ashish was he enjoyed playing or whatever, but again he didn't last very long because he was there for a while. And the thing with me is, for me it was like I said, I have to do every show. So even if someone was not there, I was like, we'll try and find someone to fill in. And I think like the DR songs were not so unplayable back in the day in terms of drums and stuff, like, but it was
Hmm.
still difficult. So there were people who filled in, and I think at that point also I didn't realize the concept of sessions members or musicians for hire. So
Yeah.
I just treated everyone like they've joined the band for one show and left. So yeah, I think it this just went on for a bit. It was not that many lineup changes also, but it was enough in the first year itself to kind of like having a different lineup at every single gig is a lot for any band.
Hmm.
But then I
Well,
think, yeah, we finally settled down without a lead guitarist. So in fact, yeah, Prashant came back as well at one point in 2001, and then finally, I think around 2001, after that last show with Prashant, where he just came back for that one gig, um, we settled on the four-piece lineup that was there, and then
yeah.
from there it went somewhere else only. That's another story.
Yeah. So let's move on to the other big milestone that happened just like a few months after formation. Well, 9 months actually to be precise. DR had released its first album, Demonstealer.
Yes.
Now, 9 months, that's like a absolute platform to have really bad dad joke connotations.
Yeah, I didn't think that through.
But here comes the question: why choose to cover Frozen by Madonna?
So I think you are referring to the second version of the album,
Okay.
because the first version, which nobody has now, or well, there will be maybe 300 people who will have it did not have Madonna's cover of Frozen on it. It in fact had an acoustic version of My World of Sadness.
Yeah, so I'm one of those 300, I think, because I
Yes.
think even though I have the second version of the album, you forgot to burn Frozen by Madonna on it, but instead burned me the first version of the album.
Oh shit. Oh dude, that's bad.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So,
So
why two versions, etc.? Just talk to us about Demonstealer.
right. So, where do I even start? So, a 16-year-old kid with a dream to conquer the metal world with an unrelenting passion, being a complete dick, not having any consideration for other people, thinking he knows everything, blah, 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 whatever. Kid, basically teenager. Um, I went ahead with the album. Like I said, I did everything on that first album actually. So, November 2000, we went to Strawberry Fields.
Okay.
That is where we released the album. The whole, like, Strawberry Fields was in Bangalore, was
Yeah.
the show to play, you know.
Yeah.
So we went there. I had burnt 300 copies in total or something of the CD, and I had taken, I think, maybe 50 or something to Bangalore. And when we landed there, everybody came and met us. Nolan, KP, Yasmin, Ganesh, all the guys from the bands Fallacy, and all these other bands in Bangalore, Toto, whole bunch of people, like, they, and everyone bought a CD without having seen us play everything. It that that moment was like, for me, Bangalore became the music scene place in the country. I mean, not that I'd been anywhere else, but just that, the brotherhood, the friendliness, the real genuine love for music. Like, Bombay was good, and I've always had a love hate relationship with Bombay, because Bombay has always been, for me, like a sort of not a very friendly city for DR. So, like, even though we were doing
Uh-huh.
stuff, there were always haters, and there were always people who didn't like the fact that we were doing well, thought we didn't deserve it. But in Bangalore, there was just love, man. Like, so I was fully taken in by that thing. But musically, the album was not good at all, because I had been recording music for hardly any time. I didn't have that much experience. I had nowhere to learn how to improve, except
Yeah.
just trial and error, because there was no YouTube there with free tutorials. There were no
Mm.
plugins that were so easily available. Like, and I couldn't even afford a studio where I could go and learn stuff or anything. So literally for me, it was like, I'm on my own. And again, being a teenager, I was like, I can do it. I don't need anybody's help. Blah blah blah. So I sung everything on the first album. All the keyboards were programmed on Fruity Loops. All the drums were programmed. I even played or programmed bass. I don't even remember now. So literally, nobody in the band was involved in that album. It was just me.
Yeah.
And because of that, obviously the singing was not good. There was a acoustic version. So I was like, you know what, we need to read. So, and also, because those were my first, like, songs that made it somewhere, I obviously didn't want to let go of them.
Mm. Mm.
Even today, I still go like, you know what, maybe I should redo those songs. Maybe I should make a updated version and, show the world the potential the songs have. So I guess it was natural to re-record. And in the second recording, um, oh, Ashish played guitar on the first recording. That is, yes, and his guitar was completely out of tune, and I
Okay.
could and I could not hear the out of tune, because it was not like super super out of tune, but it was out of tune enough. Yeah, I did everything except the lead guitar, and those two reasons were why I was like, we have to redo it without the out of tune guitar, and with Nikita singing, and let her play
Yeah.
keyboards, and let Aditya also do backing vocals in one or two places where he does them live. So the second recording was a slightly more band effort, which is why we did it. And that's why it came out, yeah, 2001.
Yeah. I remember being like very excited to finally buy this off you when I met you eventually,
Yeah.
and then I heard the whole thing. Uh, let's just say that I'm proud of the fact that My Misery was perhaps the first Indian metal song I ever figured out on my own on guitar.
There are people who still like that song, huh? Who will like.
Yeah, it was almost like like because of the intro, I guess it was very Nothing Else Matters-esque in that way.
Yeah, I think we've always had a thing with these songs with acoustic intros, like even Frozen Portrait. Like it's almost like people only know that intro. Rest of it is like, yeah, I couldn't care less about the rest of the song. That intro is the money part of it. Like that's why I'm here.
In mid 2001, we started sounding better and more cohesive, I think. We did shows once a month, and a lot of the bands used to hang out together, like Kinky Ski Monkey, Pin Drop Violence, and us. We did a show with all these bands at the first MTV AIDS Summit in 2001 as part of the Deep Throat Records compilation. We assumed it was a multi stage gig at SNDT in Juhu, but we had only been given a tent like the ones that you give to promoters for promotions, and there was no PA. And we had only been given 2 passes among all the artists in all the bands. So it was an exercise to get every single band member into the venue one at a time. Again, this could have been completely disheartening, but it was turned into fun times for everyone, as any artist that was bored was playing for any band they felt like. So it was like a huge jam in a way. My last show with DR was Mood Eye 2001. It was a huge change from just 1 year ago. This was a show without Aditya, and I really missed him for the show because we had really worked hard and we sounded so good. The feeling of being the first band on that day that made the bored and completely listless Mood Eye qualifying crowd that just kind of hangs around the stairs at the back of the amphitheater to surge forward and throng near the stage is going to be one of my best memories of my time in DR.
So, at what point did Deep Throat happen? Because in my eyes, Deep Throat really did a lot for DR and the whole metal community as such, as a whole.
Yeah,
Did it
yeah.
really?
I mean, at that time we thought it did. And it was in some way. I tried to Google Deep Throat right now. All I'm getting is porn. I'm trying to figure out the exact date that Deep Throat happened. Because yeah, I think it was around that time. But I think again the issue with Deep Throat was that it was in Belapur, the
Yeah.
studio, and Nikita could not come for the recording because parents didn't allow her to travel to Belapur with three guys. So I think that is why she was not on the album. So that's why we did Creatures of Ancient Blood. Nikita was not on that recording. Also, which is why like Nikita missed all the Strawberry Field gigs, which is why the second time in 2001 DR didn't go to Strawberry Fields
Mm.
because Nikita's parents obviously said no, and Yash's parents also were getting more and more like against him playing in a band because he was not studying and all. So that's when Reptilian Death formed, and I went as Reptilian Death in 2001. So it's yeah, it's quite weird. But yeah, Deep Throat, I think it definitely at that time felt like something very important, and it probably was like for a lot of people to get into the scene that way. But yeah, I think it did that much at least. Like I don't know if it did anything on a global level. They wanted to do a lot of stuff, but it never really took off. But this much at least they were able to do quite well, I think.
I can attest to that.
So, in 2000, sorry, the band breaks up in 2002 and kind of reforms in 2003, which with a lineup which I think most people will remember with Hussein, Mephisto, and JP. Isn't
Yeah.
that around the same time that you started Resurrection?
Kind of. So there was a bit of I think like you said, Nikita did her last show 2001 at Mudai. I think that was when Aditya had also been fired from the band. And I think basically, oh no, something. Yeah, I think then Hussein joined the band
Mm.
after that, and then Nikita was actually still in the band for most of the year. Like we never met, we never jammed and all, but she was supposed to play iRock with us in 2002, I think. Yes, iRock 2002, and Yash basically quit just before iRock. I remember this. Yeah, I had a big fallout with Prashant at that time about him stealing Yash for exhumation and all that, and being the reason Yash quit. So we had a big. Me and Hussein went and talked to Yash outside his lane and tried to like sort it out and get him to play the show, but he just refused. So basically, IROC has been like this black spot for me because band members always quit before IROC for whatever reason. so so Yash like ditches us just before IROC. So again, we start looking for a drummer. I think at that time, Ritu from Thor came to try out, but he had some scenes, so he wasn't able to play. Neeraj from Belial also came. There was a band called Belial back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, nothing worked out. And finally, somehow, Viru came and played. And Viru was like the only guy who was reliable, who was like, yeah, okay, I'll play, I'll do it. He came, he learned the songs, he was able to play. Because again, at that point, the metal scene barely had any double bass drummers. Like there was still a time
Ah,
when double bass pedals were not a regular feature. I had bought mine from Singapore for Yash to use. So luckily found Viru with double bass, could play excellent. Nikita actually came for sound check. And I remember, and I don't know whatever was going on with her, but basically she was completely out of tune during that sound check because she could hear herself. You know, those were days where, like equipment was terrible, and you know,
yeah.
if as a singer, if you don't hear the key properly, uh,
Yeah.
you like. And she was a good singer, but like she needed to find the key first. Like if you find the key, she was in tune. So whatever, she didn't get the key. Sound check was out of tune. Farhad Wadia was like, "What the fuck is this man?" So, and then Nikita basically said, "Look, I don't think I can do the show." So we actually did the show without her, and um, yeah. So after that, Viru was also he was only there for that show. That show was fuck all. We got booed. We got paper cups thrown at us. We threw merch to the crowd as a freebie. The merch got thrown back to us, and then after that it was me and Hussein. So there was no like full breakup of the band. Like there was always somebody there. So Hussein was there like for a year with me
Ah,
before Mephisto and JP joined in. So Hussein was involved before that because he was in RD with me. He was a guitar student of mine who I put on bass. I always convert guitar players to bass players. Fuck. So because yeah, I needed a bass player for RD, so Hussein got thrown onto bass, got a guitar player, and then basically I told Hussein just join DR also. And then yeah, Mephisto was in touch with me. He chased me around. He joined the band, and then JP joined, and then that 2004. So we actually jammed for a full year. All of 2003 was kind of spent writing new songs, getting the band together. We even had another female vocalist called Nandini who was there for a while before she
mm,
also bounced. So we never played any gigs with her, but we did a photo shoot with her. And then, yeah, when we were coming back to the scene, I think Death Fest had done its last gig. There was no other shows happening. So I was like, let's do our own show. Like, because I had organized DR's first gig with Avi. So I was like,
ah,
let's give it a name, let's do it and all. And that's how Resurrection was born. 2004 Resurrection was born, yeah.
You kind of came to the part where I was going next with all the jams and gigs in this era led to your second release, Darkness Descends.
Yeah.
And now, not only was this a landmark release for the band, but also in the Indian metal scene, because as far as I remember, you not only put together a release plan, but also
Hmm.
did pre-orders and stuff like that, which was kind of unheard for Indian bands at that time.
Yes, yeah, that is true.
yeah.
So
I remember all that. The sleeve and each song had a dedicated artwork to
yeah.
it and lyrics, and it was fantastic, man. And I completely flipped out for the re-recorded Frozen Portrait and Spirits of the Mystic Mountain.
Yeah, man, that was. I guess a lot has to do with the fact that like the rest of the band, like, and especially Mephisto, because he was the creative guy, and he was the visual guy at that time as well. Like, you know, he was into art and doing artworks and all. So I think we kind of just it was like we were like we have to make this incredible. And I think at that point I was like, yeah, so I was the PR guy, so I figured out, okay, there are all these websites, we'll mail them. There are all these record labels, I can try trading with them. I used to obviously see other bands working as well. I was on CD. I think I used to
CD
constantly
baby.
read up on articles. Yeah, I think we got that out on CD Baby as well. So yeah, I mean, I generally, for me, I was constantly researching and studying how to promote your band. Basically, that was
Yeah,
my instead of practicing guitar and all, I was busy learning how to do that. So I think it's just the whole band really took a big effort on this, like, and it was a very collective effort, right from the writing of the music. To putting the artwork together, like everybody would come to my house. Prashant would be here and he would sit and he would do each artwork, and we would all give feedback, and like, and I guess, being in college and all, you had the time also to do all this, like, so obviously when you're in a band, when you're working and all, it's very different, but like we all made time for this. It was, yeah.
yeah. Another thing that I remember of that record was all those crazy collaborations. I mean, you had a lot of guest musicians on that album. In fact, I remember chatting with you on the forums about Warren's solo, and
Yeah.
you telling me that yeah, Warren can play any style he wants to.
Yeah. So that was the time I was working at Farad Wadia's studio. So Warren was my, well, co-worker slash boss, and obviously he always had his guitar in the studio and he was always playing. And uh, I was a shitty guitar player, so watching Warren play was like insane. And he would always joke around and like like play some metal stuff, and like and it's just that he had the ear for it. Like he obviously, yeah. Now if I go back and I listen to what he was playing, I could nitpick at it, but he just it convinced me that he could play whatever. And the fact that of the matter is he nailed that solo, like.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think it was that point we were like, okay, we don't have a lead guitarist, but these songs need something else. Like, and if we had an idea, we wanted to execute it. So whether it was Kanika's vocals on Apocalyptic Dawn and Behind the Mask of God, because I was still very hung up on the female vocal aspect of metal. I still
Huh.
loved that. I still wanted it in certain places. Uh, and the thing is, I was not a good singer. Like, even today I still struggle a little bit, but at that time I was really not very good. And that was also a very critical time in Indian music, where everything would be dissected on the forums, like,
Yeah.
oh, this gig, the third verse, the third line, this guy went off by like fucking two notes. Oh shit. So every note, bad note, was like written about. Like, people, I feel like today people don't listen to music like that anymore. Like,
Yeah, man.
yeah, so the band was always against me singing and always against me playing any solos. So I would always try. Like, I cannot tell you how many clean versions of DR songs there are with me singing and trying. And now when I listen to them, I'm like, it's such a good thing they didn't let me sing, because it's all out of fucking tune. So they would constantly reject my clean vocal parts. And finally, and again, the main thing is I was working in Farad Wadia's studio. So
Huh.
I was working with a very, very high caliber of musicians. So one of those musicians was Parvez Kadir. He's a jingle
Yeah.
singer. He's done an indie pop album also, and he was a, like, for me, my mind used to be blown when I used to watch these guys sing, because they would come in, they would nail, like, there was no question of like, are you're out of tune types. It's like, what is the new tune you want now? Like for me, singing was very intuitive, like, just like, okay, these guys were like, okay, no, no, we need this note here, can you change this note to this? And they had so much control, so I was blown away. So I was just like, let me take a, I had a good rapport with all these people. So I said, like, Parvez, will you sing on the album? Like, we're a
Hmm.
band now. He said, yeah, 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 man, I'll sing. So he agreed to do it. So we got him to do all the clean parts except one song. The moment he read the name Carnival of Depravity, he's like, no, no, listen, I don't want to sing this, man. I was like, okay. Because, again, like a lot of people, like in the studio, they're not metalheads, and they may not, then they kind of might take offense to your
Yeah.
your sort of demonic imagery. And I mean, they didn't really, but like, well, like I said, like a small thing like Carnival of Depravity, he's like, oh no, I'll pass on that. The rest of it he was okay with, you know. So yeah, we got him to do that, and then Prashant also we got him to do some stuff, and then Niranjan Dhar Posey,
Yeah.
who I knew through the
Appleseed.
forums, we got him to do one solo. So yeah, we got all these things done, man. It was quite cool.
What are your favorite songs of the album now looking back?
I think for me, "Spirits of the Mystic Mountains" still is one of my favorite songs from that album, and "Where Shadows Lie."
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my two favorite tracks.
All right. And I know you talked about planning on, re-recording or remixing songs of Demon Stealer. Have you been
Yeah.
tempted to re-record, remix, or remaster any stuff from Darkness Descents and put it out again?
So the problem is Darkness Descends was recorded at Farhad Wadia's studio. Uh, all the files are in Farhad Wadia's studio computer, which I don't know where it is anymore. So
Oh,
I actually do not have the files of that album. Uh, so I was like, and the thing is, on that album, the keyboard layering is of some other level only. Like there
Hmm.
are six different layers for each part with different instruments to get that sound. So I don't even know how Mephisto, even if I got Mephisto to come back just to re-record this stuff, I don't know how we would recreate it. But the thought did cross my mind of maybe re-recording a couple of tracks, the ones that we used to play live, where we could kind of give it a new spin. So we did a re-recording of Journey to Solaris recently, just before Nishit and Ashwin quit the band, and definitely, like, yeah, it was quite cool to do that. But yeah, I don't know if we could do the whole album again. In fact, I'm thinking it would take me like 6 months just to figure out all the guitar parts of the songs that we stopped playing live.
Okay. All right. Moving on. It's these years, like after A Darkness Descends, that Demonic Resurrection's popularity as such started really increasing. And that has a lot to do with your hard work, as you spoke, all those emails and forums and messages and really whatnot.
so you also went in a way to a global level because you talked about actually mailing CDs to review sites and trading CDs and all. What were the reactions to the band back then? Was it like seen as exotic or Indian metal? The curiosity of it. What was that all? What is the reactions on the global level?
Oh, the response was amazing. Like I think we went over the moon, because we had never done this before. Like with Demon Stealer, I had done a little bit here and there where I had sent out a few CDs, but obviously we didn't get many reviews. But I did get some offers to release it. But I don't think any of those releases actually ever went through or happened. There were some offers from Malaysia and Brazil. So while that got some amount of global attention that I could muster from mp3.com and other places, again, I think this album, we just put so much of our energy behind it. So I was mailing out CDs, I was writing to every zine possible. And I guess because we were from India, there was an interest, and for whatever reason, people enjoyed the album. I remember getting a 9 out of 10 on Metal Observer and being just like insane, this is epic. And I think also maybe a lot of people didn't know what to expect from an Indian band, and then to hear these sort of songs and get just the music in general, I think they were quite flawed by the variety of sounds across that album. The style changes and the fact that everything was executed quite well. So
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I think, and a lot of labels were trading with me. So they would say send 10 of your CDs, and we'll send you 10 of ours, and we just really, really, really pushed that album.
So, soon after that, you also put out a 5-track EP, Beyond the Darkness, which was part of the compilation Rise of the Eastern Blood, which was a split
Yeah,
with severe dementia, Dusk. Uh, but that was a kind of strange time also in the Bombay metal scene where you had Raz shutting down. It
Yeah.
led to like lull of gigs.
yeah.
Pradeep, the guitarist who joined you on that release, leaves, but you recruit a young new guitarist. And just to introduce that part, let's hear about his first gig with the band. So we have somebody who has memories of that gig.
Oh.
I think one of my favorite memories was definitely when the Return to Darkness launched in 2010, and they had this show, a launch show in Borivali at a place called Bayview, I believe. And my friend Daniel was playing for DR at that point, and it was just like a wonderful mix to sort of see that. We also went to the venue, which was I think probably hosting metal for the first time. So it was always an experience in itself.
Any guesses who that was?
Yeah, it's Tag It.
Yeah.
Cool. And here's another memory from that show from somebody else.
The show would not have happened without Sahil because at that time, during that 2008 period in our Bombay, there was hardly any venues to do a show. And Sahil asked me, I asked Sahil, basically, I called up Sahil, hey, I want to do this particular tribute show and I'm not sure where to do it. Are you looking at to do a resurrection or something like that? So that's when he mentioned to me, hey, like I am planning to do this show at this new venue called Bayview in Borivali. So like he was planning the Metal Injector show with workshop and scribe over there. So he said, why don't you come and why don't you also work on the show and you will see then how the venue is and you can plan to do your show as well later on. So that's how I ended up seeing the venue because of him. And because of him, we ended up doing the show later on at the same place. And when I called him to ask him details, like how much it costs and etc., that's when he pitched the idea to me, hey, Demonic Resurrection has actually not played since almost, I think, it was, I think, around 8 or 9 months that they had not performed because Pradeep had left the band. So, and they were looking for a new, basically, lead guitarist. And they had found one and they had kept it a secret. Nobody, he had not informed anybody that Daniel had joined the band. So, he wanted to do the show with Daniel for the first time. And it was very interesting to, see him take that much of interest, first of all, in something like this. And then he said to me, hey, I would want you to get sound.com as the vendor for the show. Because the one thing, I'll come and do the show free, but one thing is that I need proper sound for the show. I will help you with Fatados as well. He helped me with getting the on-stage gear by getting Fatados as partners for the show, which is also amazing. So all the Laneys and Mapex and everything came on board for free of cost from Backline. So the only condition was to get proper monitoring and FOH for the show from sound.com. And so Fali, he gave me Fali's contact, and I called up Fali and spoke to him, explained what the show was, and then Sahil also spoke to sound.com, and they came on board to do the sound in a very, very discounted rate. I don't think anybody will give a console and PA system for that rate, even back then in 2008, what they have given me for that show. So yeah, that's how we ended up doing the show, and DR also performed at the show.
Sahil, tell us about that show.
Tell you about Ashwin Sharma.
Or just debuting Daniel.
Daniel. I don't remember much about that show actually.
Okay, so first tell us about recruiting Daniel.
Daniel, so I found Daniel in Fatados. He was in Xavier's and he would come to Fatados and he would be blazing away on the guitar. And I think I also kind of knew that Pradeep was going to leave sooner or later. As I know with most members, when their time is coming to an end in the band, I can just sense it. Like, okay, this guy's on his way out, or this is. I better start gearing up for a replacement. So when I saw Daniel play and he liked DR, and his dad also used to be there all the time. His dad had seen DR and his dad knew me and stuff. And I saw him playing. I was like, you know what? When Pradeep leaves, this guy is going to join the band. This guy is the guitar player. Like, he's the guy. And I know we did an audition for it as well. And Daniel was one of three people who came to audition. And yeah, Daniel pretty much nailed it. Like, we basically, I think, asked them to learn one or two songs, and Daniel came. Viru gave a folk count, and he just played the song from start to end. We didn't have to tell him anything. We didn't have to stop him and say you're playing this wrong or nothing. He had. The thing is, Daniel is was a prodigy. Like, he has perfect pitch. He had worked out all the parts, all the solos, everything. The other two guys, not so much. So there was not much of a question of who was. And like I said, I think I'd already made up my mind about Daniel, but I just wanted to have the audition any which way, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I found him in Fatados. I think we again. So Pradeep had quit just before iRock. Again, fucking iRock. 2008 iRock. Just and again, it was not on bad terms, but it was whatever last minute ditch kind of thing. Any which way, like we used to jam at late in the night at my place because I think at that time Hussein and Mephisto were both quite. Busy with their jobs, so they would actually be working till like 9 or 9:30, 10 in the night, and they'd come to my place by like 10:30, 11, and we jammed till 12. And then
Hmm.
for Pradeep, who lived in Ambernath, it was a nightmare getting home. So he would reach home at like 3 in the morning and all. And I think he was like, boss, this is not worth it. I was like, I can't live like this. So we knew that quitting was coming because he would, you could tell like. But I think Daniel had not been like formally recruited for IROC. So we did IROC as a four piece. It was Mephisto, Hussein, myself, and Viru. 2008 IROC.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then Daniel joined in. I think then we were looking for that gig, and we probably contacted. How Ashwin? I don't remember any of this stuff. Like Ashwin is but I do remember it was Bayview. I do remember now that he mentioned it, yeah, we didn't tell anyone that Daniel had joined. He just sort of came on stage and surprise.
So wait, there's another funny memory from that.
I remember this one kid at that show who got injured in the mosh pit during DR set, and he stumbled and he came out and he fell in front of me, like outside. And I was like, shit. And he was wincing in pain. Like, he was like, oh, clutching his stomach. And he was like, oh, shit, oh, shit. And I picked him up. I gave him a bottle of water to drink. He just poured it over his head. And he ran back inside into the mosh pit. And I was at the gate looking at the band. And like Daniel was playing the solo of, I think, Spirits of the Mystic Mountain. Yeah, Spirits of the Mystic Mountain, the song. It was an insane moment. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Ashwin Sharma has good memories of
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah, man, that's so good memory indeed.
Okay, so eventually in 2010, we moved to 2010 now, 10 years of
Yeah.
the band done almost, and in comes the third album, which is the last of the Darkness trilogy, The Return to Darkness.
Yes.
And this, of course, brings you your first ever music video, which was Unrelenting Search of Vengeance.
Yes.
How was that like? 10 years later, first ever music
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was something like I think we always were a band that worked on budgets and were very careful about money.
Hmm.
A lot of bands, I think, pool in tons of money and go all out on albums and spend lakhs and lakhs doing stuff. And I think for me, I was always about being practical. For me, it was like, see, these bands are all here today spending 3 lakhs on an album. Again, in 5 years, they'll all be gone and disbanded. And I'd seen this obviously over the 10 years of being in the scene,
Ah.
um, uh, because like you can't sustain spending that kind of money on each album. For me, the goal was always whatever money is spent on the album, it has to be earned back. If it is not earned back, your album is not worth it. like you will. So I think that's also why we never attempted music videos. And also I guess there was also no indie film scene. There was no every second person owning a DSLR, and making a music video was actually an affair that cost you a lakh or 2 lakhs,
Yeah.
3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, whatever. So I think by 2010, YouTube was starting to be big in India. There was some semblance of an indie film scene happening, and that's kind of where Vas came in. And Vas was doing, you know, his filmmaking, and he was doing indie stuff. He was not doing the Bollywood. So I think he might have a better memory of how it came about. But basically, we we spoke to him. He agreed to do the video and was not going to cost too much. And yeah, it just happened, and it was a great shoot. We got gear from Fatados as we always do, Um and we shot in this abandoned building, and it was just awesome, man. It was so much fun to do our first video, and we got signed to Candlelight Records. A lot of things happened. That 2010 was like an incredible year for us. We had booked Brutal Assault for 2009, but Viru didn't have a passport. So we cancelled our appearance in 2009 and rebooked for 2010. So we played our first two international festivals that year. We also did Inferno Festival Norway, which was our first ever international gig, and it was completely paid for because of the exchange program between Rikskonserte, that's the Concerts Norway, and GIR or Rock Street Journal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was absolutely what a year, man. We won the Golden God that year as well. We won a couple of Rolling Stone Metal Awards. So everything just kind of fell into place that year with this album.
Yeah. So, you kind of walked ahead with the question I had, where,
Ah,
this was the year that DR truly went international. You got your distribution deal with Candlelight Records. You all did your first international festivals. So
yeah.
let's play a clip from, those memories that some of your old members had.
Oh, wow.
My favorite DR moment, there are way too many, but one really stands out. So in the early 2000s, during the pre-online streaming days, we used to download concerts from the internet and exchange CDs. And I had CDs of Demo Borgir and other black metal bands playing at this festival called Inferno. I literally had a dream once where DR was playing at Inferno Festival, and my favorite DR moment is the realization of this dream when we actually got to play at Inferno Festival in Norway in 2010.
My favorite memory of my time in DR. This is going to be tough because I spent some of the greatest years of my life in that band, and I have so many fond memories. But I think it's going to be between either our trip to Inferno Festival in Oslo or our trip to Brutal Assault in Czech Republic. And I think I'm going to go with Inferno because nothing could have prepared me for what that was like. That was my first international gig, and I think my first international trip, period. And was probably the first, if not one of the first, international gigs DR did. And just that experience of being at a legit international metal festival, not just watching, but also being around some of my favorite metal bands and being around some of the bands that I would end up being a big fan of. That experience was surreal. It just felt amazing. And Oslo was one of those cities that I've always wanted to visit because, as most metal fans have this fascination with Norway, right? Especially like people who are into black metal, there's this fascination with Norway. So for me, that was a big deal, and that experience is still very clear in my memory.
So that, of course, was Mephisto, then followed by Daniel.
Yeah.
Do you want to add any more to their memories of Inferno?
Yeah, I mean, what a festival, man. Like Daniel said, nothing can prepare you for it. You see it on shows, and especially when you're at a younger age. Like you just go there and everybody is in black. Everybody's got spikes and leather and like that. Like not like Bombay. Everyone's in three-fourths and chappals. Like you go there and you're like, fucking hell, dude. And it's cold, and you just and the connection with people, like you're walking around and there's Isan and there's Obsidian from Keep of Callison and there's Nick Barker getting a tattoo, and you're just like, there's Jack Daniels flowing, there's beer flowing, there's like, you just don't, like, it's amazing. And watching watching, I think what we watched, mayhem, and watching all your favorite bands. Obscura, we saw Obscura at that time. I barely knew Obscura at that time, and that was with Hans Grossman. And just seeing all these bands and that atmosphere there, man, nothing can, you can't put it into words. And Inferno is like a incredible first festival experience because it's an indoor festival. So it's not like it, getting thrown into camping and suddenly, like, you're like in an uncomfortable place. But this is like a it was a perfect experience, man. Like, we're having breakfast and there's Gal sitting there and eating his eggs and toast or whatever, and Samoth from Emperor walking around the buffet, and you're just like, what? And Isan, oh man, dude, like, we met everybody. It was insane.
Yeah, and you already talked about, but later on that summer, you all played Brutal Assault, which was your
Yeah.
second festival, and this is Brutal Assault you all played for the first time. Uh, so I happened to be within the vicinity of
Yeah.
the festival, so I ended up attending that festival, and I still remember, like, I was so proudly wearing that old DR logo T-shirt and standing up front watching you guys play an early slot. I think it was like 11 or 12 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was just crazy just to see. So, I mean, really, the perception of the band changed at a global level that year. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that year is when we really kind of, like, we actually took the next big step from 2005. 2005 just kind of put was dipping the toe into the water. 2010, I would say, is putting the foot in ankle deep at least.
But it's not always about the international gigs. So we have some other memories from another old band member.
I think my favorite time being in Demonic Resurrection was the time when we were touring India. I'm quite sure the other guys in the band would have gone, Inferno and fucking Europe was Amaze Balls and whatever. But I think for me, it was definitely the time in India when the gigs were so badly organized, and we were probably the first metal band to play in that city or that town. And just the fact that we were there for the first time and playing metal I think it was an amazing feeling. The whole the excitement of the crowd, the excitement of the people, just making do with whatever equipment you get on stage. The time after the show, the time leading up to the shows and stuff was just amazing. Spending time with the guys in the band, with the people, seeing things around. I definitely enjoyed my time during that period.
If you didn't guess already, that was Hussein.
Yeah,
But
what the hell is his
by
accent, man? South Africa's rubbing up on him.
but by the time you'll released Return to Darkness, DR was now like properly touring across India. And if I remember well, you all did about 6, 7 shows in support of the album. So does any city or show stand out from your memory, and why?
Yeah, that was, I think, yeah, we did the 5 cities. We added some more. We did almost 10 cities for that resurrection. We had Tuborg on as a sponsor. It was crazy. I think I definitely remember the Shillong show a lot because it was not for good reasons. It was at some place called Cloud 9, which was like a very fancy club, and they weren't letting the metalheads in. They were like being really anal about stuff, and then finally they let them in. The full foot They did not let us start because the football World Cup or some shit was going on behind us. And I think Insane Prophecy played a few songs. I think Plague Throat also was there. I can't remember, but we literally played like 4 songs. But it was amazing. That was a crazy show. The crowd in Shillong was insane. They were like so passionate. Yeah, I definitely remember that. But yeah, that was definitely there. Then even the Bombay show was really good. It was at some place called Marimba
Yeah.
in Andheri, behind where Fun Republic and all are now somewhere there. And yeah, moving all the furniture. playing that tour was great. That was one of the really fun India tours that we did. The Pune show was very good. I think that overall it was a great tour that we did.
Yeah. Eventually, of course, the band keeps moving on, and we reach 2014, where we see the band's fourth album, The Demon King.
Yes.
Yeah. And by this time, you are the marketing guy, because I remember attending a listening party you had
Yeah.
before the album, which was really cool. Just, yeah, I remember you printed out the lyrics so like everyone could sit and like actually get into
Yeah.
music. So that was cool. But now the band has costumes. How did that come about?
Yeah, so honestly, like I have to credit Mephisto quite a bit for all this stuff in terms of the listening party and like a lot of these ideas were his actually. Like he would come up with this and we'll print the lyrics and give it to them so they can um, read the story and all that. So yeah, we kind of just I think with every album, at least when Mephisto has been there, there's always been someone with me in the driver's seat. Like I think from day one he has been, I would say, and like the 50% of DR along with me in terms of being involved and being invested in the band. Like not to say that the others didn't put in a lot of effort, but in terms of just going beyond writing the music, it's always been me and Mephisto. Whether it's been coming up with ideas, whether it's been promotion, the band look, the band sound, the band ideology, everything. It's just kind of been like through the two of us. So he was one like we should do costumes, we need to up our live show, etc., etc. So yeah, that's a lot of it is due to him pushing for that.
And also, what was cool about this album is you had the distribution deal now with Universal Music in India, so people could
Yeah.
actually like buy it off any of your music stores, which still existed back then.
Yeah, I think again, like for me, I've always been focused on numbers. How many copies has it sold? Why hasn't it sold? Why is it not selling? And a lot of comparison with our social media. So like we have so many likes. So why aren't we selling this percentage of CDs? So that has always been my biggest burden, if you want to call anything that, is that social media situation. And I think there was a constant push from people like, oh, it's not available, how to get it, and I think for me, Universal was a trial thing to see if there was any truth to the theory that the distribution or something was the reason we perhaps didn't sell as many copies as we would have liked. So yeah, I managed to sort that distribution out, and yeah, I got my answer.
Hmm. Okay, I have a confession to make here. This is the only DR album I've never heard.
Oh,
Yeah,
hope,
completely.
hopefully you listen to it today.
Maybe. But I do remember this. I remember seeing you guys live, and this is about the time, when Daniel had left, I think, and Nishit had come in, and Hussein had also left, so Ashwin Shriyan was on bass. But I
Yeah.
remember seeing you guys live, and I remember like thinking to myself that, oh my God, you guys are on a different level now, because you guys were insanely tight. There was a decent amount of showmanship, and while perhaps the music didn't resonate with me that much, but the live act was beautiful to watch. I mean, yeah, I remember watching it with Ravi Balakrishnan, and
Mhm.
both of us were like, "Oh my God, DR is so good right now as a live act."
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I guess the thing is, one of the things with DR is I think every time we lose a musician, the goal is always to get someone better than the last guy. At least in terms of the playing ability, and for sure, like I won't get into the creative part of it, but like in terms of tightness, execution, we've always looked to get someone better than who was there previously, which is why it makes it even harder and harder to find new musicians now.
Right.
Yeah, and of
So,
course, and your years and your musicianship as such has also increased quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely. As you keep and that's the thing for me. One of the things I learned early on is when you play in the band, you should be the worst musician there.
Hmm.
Like because then you're always going to be, pushed to improve yourself because you're playing with much better players. So you'll have to up your game rather than you being the best one there and like being like who are these people I'm playing with, which is
Mm.
also why maybe a lot of them leave eventually because they're just too they're like, I can't play with these subpar guys anymore.
Okay, so 3 years later, you have your fifth album, which is in 2017, Tash Avtar. Now,
Yeah.
this, you know, kind of, I still remember you sending me the promo for it, and my initial reaction was, oh my God, like what has DR done? Either there's going to be like polarizing reviews, like what's going on. And yes, I'm talking about the introduction of Indian sounds. I remember that first single that you sent me had sitar and tabla on it. So
Yeah.
looking back, why on your fifth album now suddenly you get the Indian sound after all those years of being accused of not sounding Indian enough?
Right. I think for us on that album, it was just a natural progression. So with the Demon King, the idea itself for the album was kind of from Ramayan because
Yeah.
one of Jitesh's friends, Pratik Kamath, who was a friend of mine, who did the Mindsnare album artwork and lots of artwork back in the day, even the Reptilian Death artwork. He had written like a book, which was a modern day interpretation of Ramayan with like nuclear weapons and that kind of stuff. And Mephisto really liked that story, and he wanted the album to basically be lyrically that story. Like take the book and make an album on it. And while I read the book and I did enjoy the book quite a bit, I felt like I didn't want to take that story exactly as it was. I wanted to write my own story, but we liked the idea of the visual sort of. So the Demon King, the name came from Ravan. Basically, Ravan is the
Mm.
Demon King. So since the idea for the album title was Ravan, we thought it would make sense to put it in the artwork, you know, which is where that you'll find the first sort of semblance of Indian, so to speak, is the artwork of Demon King. It's Ram versus Ravan essentially, if you look at it. In obviously Michael X's interpretation of it.
Yeah.
So we did that, and there was some toying around with the idea of doing something with Indian mythology, which I never found interesting in my entire life, largely because of the way it's been depicted. If you ever watch Ramayana or Mahabharata, while it may have been cool as a child, as an adult watching those arrows fly in the air and then these color gradients pop out and all those cheesy costumes and all that, it never really appealed to me till Dipti started telling me some of the stories. So she told me the story of Narsimha and kind of said, look, our mythology can be quite brutal. Uh, and like Narsimha rips out the intestines and wears a garland of it. I'm like, wow, this is really brutal. I would have never imagined it if I saw it on DD Metro with those terrible costumes and all that, the way it was interpreted. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I kind of went a little deeper into that. And so, Dash Avatar, there are 10 avatars of Vishnu, there are 10 stories. Could not have asked for a better album theme. And obviously, because we were doing lyrically um, the Hindu mythology and the stories, we were like, if it makes sense in some of the songs, let's have um, the instruments to go along with it. So like Krishna plays the flute, so that's why that song has a flute in it. So we took that idea, and then and that time I think Rishabh scene was also becoming like super popular, and he was like well known. And I was like, well, here's a metal sitar player, let's see what he can do with this song, because this song kind of could use that thing, which is also why we didn't put him across every album. It was like, okay, which song needs something added to it. So we worked like in that fashion, and that's why the album has those themes along with it. So the Buddha song has the Buddha chants in it, and the Kurma song has the Om Namah Shivaya chants. So we took those elements that we felt were needed there, and we added them.
Okay. Now, I personally think this album should have like happened earlier, like chronologically speaking.
Hmm.
Its sound could have been explored and released earlier. What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think it would have worked like I was not in the headspace. Like
Okay.
this naturally went to that. In the
Hmm.
beginning, it's always about rebellion, right? Like you're there to rebel. You're like, I don't want to sound Indian. I don't want to. I want to be one of the best, whatever, black metal, death metal bands. I want to be able to play music that is mine. Like I want to play. I don't want to fall into this cliche of Indian music. And there are plenty of bands that have a Indian sound, and that again, they may be genuine to them, but a lot of us look at it as a gimmicky thing or whatever. And I'm sure enough people look at DR's album and say, the gimmick, whatever. So, and again, when you're younger, you're more rebellious, you're more against, like, I don't want to fall into this Indianness. I'm trying to stay away from it. It's like with food also for me. Like, I never really was into Indian cooking and stuff, but once I
Ah.
started the show, and the show kind of gave me a different perspective of like, hey, you're interviewing foreign musicians. Why are you feeding them burgers? Like, you don't have to like to eat Indian food to feed it to them. So you pick up stuff, and then you're like, okay, there's so much here that I didn't know about, and that's actually cool. Just because it's been presented to me in a certain way as I grew up doesn't mean that that's what it is. There's a lot more uh, to it than you might know. So yeah, I think it was natural, like, because if it had happened earlier, I think it would have been forced. It would have literally been like, okay, let's do it for something. Now this time it literally came naturally. Like, had Dipti not told me the story of Narsimha and given me like a different way of looking at these stories, I would have
Hmm.
never gone and written them.
And now, 3 years since Dashaptar, DR has turned 20 in 2020.
Yes.
It's just you and Viru left at the moment.
Yes.
Officially, that is.
Yes, officially it's just me and Viru, yeah.
You've seen the evolution of whatever we may call the scene here. And
Yeah.
if you had to do, things differently for DR from the beginning, would you change anything?
So that's an interesting answer I have, because I would not change anything, because I'm generally the kind of person that has no regrets. I look at life as a journey, because in reality you can't go back and change anything. And I think everything you do is what brings you to the place that you are in life. So for me, like, I wouldn't be here today without having those experiences. You know, those experiences built up a lot of things that are there today. And um, no, I don't think I could. I mean, look, if I want to make a hypothetical situation, yeah, I'd love to go back and have started learning guitar maybe 5 or 6 years before I formed DR, so that I would have
Hmm.
written different music. Then maybe got a producer and had a banging first album, that had. But I don't know if that would really change anything. Um, like, yeah, I guess, yeah, sure, I would love to have made every album sound better than it does now, but I guess it had to happen. It's a journey. It had to be bad to get good. I had to learn from each album, and that's also why I was able to sustain it. Like, maybe, yeah, if I'd gone back to 2000 and hired a producer and spent 2 lakhs of my parents' money on an album, maybe I'd have stopped playing music in 3 years. Who knows? Because
Hmm.
parents would be like, just get a damn job now, you owe us 3 lakhs or whatever, and I'd be less like spending my life trying to pay back bills and debt. So yeah.
And I know this is an easy question to ask, but what really does it take to keep all of this, just keep it going?
I guess you have to have the passion and the desire, and you have to want it enough, I guess, like with anything in life. If you really, really want it, um, and you work for it, you can make things happen. But I also think you need to be very self aware, and also understand, like, uh, if you are at a certain level and what you need to do to improve. Like, if you reach this point where you think, I'm awesome, I can do no wrong and stuff, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
At least over the last couple of years, you've been alluding on social media about ending DR, and then you play a show, then you did a UK tour, and now you announced Metal Days, a slot. What is truly next for DR?
So the thing is, as you would have told, as you would know from my social media posts, have been quite disillusioned over the last 2 years at least. And I, I just got fed up with the way things are going, the constant struggle, and struggling at the same things more or less, which is
Mm.
booking tours and stuff like that. Which for me, after 20 years, you should not have to struggle with that stuff. Like you should struggle with other shit. So for me, genuinely, DR, I don't know the future because we did a last show and then like I was like, okay, the members are there, we can do a show. I would have loved to say, okay, let me do a world tour America, Europe, UK, Australia, everywhere, and then I'd be happy to say it's done. Uh, but I can't do that. That's been my struggle, which is why when tours happen, I'm like, okay, I know I disbanded, but like there's a tour, and I've not played there, so why not do it? So as of now, we just exist. There is enough musicians that I can call and hire for shows. I don't know if I will be out looking for tours to happen. Like I guess I got tired of sending hundreds of emails every year to only get rejected or no reply. So Metal Days was a lucky thing, but again nothing else happened around it, and now this entire coronavirus situation has put everything in limbo. And to be honest, to some extent, it has also changed my perspective a little bit on life in general. And I'm a little more grateful for the fact that I can at least still play and make music. Um, but I genuinely, at this point, don't know what is going to happen with DR. I guess only time will tell if anything will happen.
Dan, Dan, Dan. Wow, what a dramatic end to
Cliffhanger.
lovely
Wait
long
for the
con. Yeah, it's a huge cliffhanger.
wait for the sequel. First single to
who,
come out will be when Corona ends. Wake me up when Corona ends.
who knows, huh? Sahil
Yeah.
saying all of this, like the moment we release this episode, Sahil will suddenly announce like DR is back
Album
with
number six.
album number 6. Fooled you guys.
But on a serious note, congratulations to Demonic Resurrection for a lovely 20 years because weirdly enough, I think this band has kind of been the gateway band to most Indian metalheads towards Indian bands and Indian metal bands itself.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, at least like for my generation.
Thank you.
So modest, huh, Sahil?
So modest. So modest. All right. Okay. But before we leave, I have to ask you one final question.
Yes.
How do you come up with cheers and stay demonic?
I think it was like um some emails back in the day when I started out. I think somebody I must have written to who wrote back, "Cheers, man. Cheers, cheers, cheers." I guess I must have written to some British people. I got a couple of cheers, and I don't know, cheers and stay demonic. I used to just start ending my emails with that, man. And then it just caught on. Then everyone was doing it.
Yeah. I think we got
Sure.
I think like, yeah, we got bombarded with so many messages from you that it just became the natural way to end any conversation with.
Yeah, I guess I was also, I think, the only person in the scene who had like a catchphrase, no?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, no.
Yeah.
I still remember you ending shows with, and you can call me
Call
the
me.
Demon Stealer.
Yeah. Yeah. And now Nitin Rajan is saying you can call me something or the other at primitive gigs.
So on that note, Sal, thank you so much for your time once again, and congratulations once again to Demonic Resurrection. And of course, I'll end at the moment by allowing you to plug whatever it is that you want to plug.
Well, I guess I can plug that Demonic Resurrection has put out a lyric video for the song Buddha on our YouTube channel. In case you didn't know, we put out a live album last year called Live at Bloodstock, which you can download on our Bandcamp page. And speaking of which, Demonic Resurrection and myself, which includes my solo material, Reptilian Death, my death metal project, and workshop, my comedy rock band, all my entire discography across these, and Solus X Infernus, a new band I've joined. My entire discography across these 5 bands, 18 releases, is now completely free on my Bandcamp due to the coronavirus situation. As I know, money is tight for a lot of people, and I would rather people spend their money on bands that actually need the financial support because they've been adversely affected by the current situation. So please go ahead to any of the Bandcamp pages, put zero in the amount, and download the music for free and enjoy it. Thank you.
We are available at hauntsupport.com if you guys want to reach out to us at all for anything to do with metal, anything to talk about metal. Do reach out. You can find me at Asmani on Twitter. Peter, you're at.
And Prasha.
And Sahil, do you want people to find you anywhere?
If you like my music, you can follow, but only if you like my music. If you are coming for anything else, go to the respective handle, Instagram handle. There's the cooking stuff on Headbangers Kitchen. There's Demonic Resurrection on Instagram and Twitter. And if you like my solo music, you can follow me at Demonstealer on Instagram and at the Demonstealer on Twitter.
So, for the first time, I think we'll end the episode with something that you have continuously said to sign off.
Cheers and stay demonic.
And stay demonic.
Cheers and stay demonic.
Cheers and stay demonic.
Cheers and stay demonic.